It was supposed to be just another rainy afternoon in Brooksville, a quiet town where time seemed to move slower and stories often hid behind old shop doors. But that day, in a small auto garage at the corner of Maple and 3rd, something extraordinary began to unfold. Something that would remind everyone watching that kindness, no matter how small, can change a life forever. Kennedy, a young woman in her late 20s, had been driving home after a long day when her car suddenly sputtered to a stop. She pulled over, frustrated and worried that her paycheck was already stretched thin, and a car repair was the last thing she needed. After several failed calls to nearby mechanics, a local passerby pointed her toward Joe's garage, a small workshop barely standing, its faded sign swaying in the wind. Inside, the air smelled of oil and old memories. Behind the counter stood Joe, an elderly mechanic in his 70s, his hands rough from decades of hard work, his blue jumpsuit stained with grease. His eyes, though weary, carried a quiet kindness. "What seems to be the trouble, miss?" he asked, wiping his hands with a no drag. Kennedy explained, her voice trembling with the weight of her situation. Joe nodded slowly and, without hesitation, offered to take a look. For hours, he worked beneath the hood, humming softly to himself, his every movement careful and precise. Kennedy sat nearby, watching the rain fall outside and thinking about how this old man reminded her of her grandfather, a gentle, patient, and impossibly selfless. When Joe finally stepped back, the engine roared back to life. Kennedy's relief was immediate, but it was quickly followed by panic when Joe handed her the invoice. "Sir, a broken bar. I can't afford all this right now," she confessed, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Joe smiled, shaking his head. "You don't owe me a dime today. Just promise me you'll pay it forward someday." Tears filled her eyes. She offered to at least bring him dinner or help around the shop, but he waved her off with a chuckle. "Go on now, you've got places to be." Kennedy left that day deeply moved. She couldn't stop thinking about Joe's wrinkled hands and the way he treated her not as a customer, but as a person. A week later, unable to shake the feeling that she owed him more than words, Kennedy decided to stop by the garage again, at this time with a warm meal and a small thank you card. But when she arrived, she found the garage door half open and a young man standing inside, packing up boxes. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Is Joe here?" The young man looked up, his expression heavy. "You must be one of his customers." "I'm sorry, ma'am. Joe passed away 2 days ago." Kennedy froze. The words didn't make sense at first. The man, Joe's nephew, went on to explain that Joe had been battling heart problems for years. He wouldn't stop working, the nephew said. He said fixing cars made him feel alive. "That last week, he told me he met a young woman who reminded him why he loved helping people in the first place." Tears welled in Kennedy's eyes as she handed over the meal and the card, not knowing what else to do. The nephew smiled sadly, saying Joe would have appreciated that. Then something caught Kennedy's attention, a small envelope taped to the garage wall, her name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a handwritten note, "Greater than Dear Kennedy, I wanted to thank you for the conversation the other day. You reminded me that kindness still matters. I don't know how much time I've got left, but it brings me peace knowing the world still has people like you." Joe. Kennedy broke down right there, holding the letter to her chest as the rain began to fall again, just like the day they met. But this time, her tears were mixed with gratitude. In the following weeks, Kennedy couldn't let Joe's story end there. She started a small community fundraiser to restore Joe's old garage, turning it into a free repair program for struggling families and seniors, a tribute to the man who gave without expecting anything in return. Local news outlets caught wind of it, and soon, Joe's Garage of Hope became a symbol of compassion across town. Each wall now holds stories, photos of Joe, letters from people he helped, and a simple sign above the entrance that reads, "In honor of those who fix more than cars and those who fix hearts." Kennedy often visits the shop on quiet evenings, watching young mechanics volunteer their time, and she smiles, knowing Joe's spirit still lingers in the hum of engines and the warmth of giving. The story of an elderly mechanic and a broken-down car became a reminder that the smallest act of kindness can leave the deepest mark, and that sometimes, the people we meet by accident are the ones who teach us how to live.